6 months after the events of Underworld Evolution, a program is launched by humans to study and potentially harness the powers of vampires and Lycans. However, this soon escalates into an all-out genocide, and shortly after the Purge begins. Humans capture vampire Selene during the Purge, a massive crusade of war to exterminate vampires and Lycans after mankind learns of their existence. Selene had decided to escape town with Michael Corvin, her Lycan lover. However, the human hunting squads catch up with them and shoot Michael with a silver bullet. Michael falls into the waters at the docks, as Selene is captured. Due to her enhanced vampire-like traits, Selene is imprisoned in cryogenic suspension. Dr. Jacob Lane is the chief scientist working on a cure against the virus that infects humans and turns them into vampires. 12 years later, Selene is freed from cryogenic suspension and escapes the medical corporation Antigen. The corporation is trying to make an antidote for the virus that creates vampires and Lycans. The scene indicates that Selene is allowed to escape Antigen to find Subject 2. Selene in turn was looking for Michael and returned to the docks where she last saw him. She realizes that 12 years have passed since that incident. Detective Sebastian is assigned to investigate the disturbance at Antigen Labs. Dr. Lane informs Sebastian that a test subject tried to escape the facility and was put down. Selene starts to have strange visions after her escape, which she follows, believing them to be linked to her lover, the vampire-Lycan hybrid Michael Corvin, who was injured when Selena was captured. The visions lead her into a building where she runs into David, a fellow vampire. Sick and weakened Lycans also appear simultaneously. They are hunting the subject with whom Selene is connected. Selene fights her way through the Lycan pack. Following her vision, she discovers not Michael, but a young girl called only Subject 2, also known as Eve. Selene, David, and the girl drive away using a stolen van, only to be attacked once again by a trio of Lycans. David and Selene kill two while the third smashes its way into the rear of the vehicle and bites the girl's shoulder. Eve partially transforms and rips the creature in half, revealing her hybrid traits. Eve is revealed to be a hybrid. David notes that Eve has been injured by the Lycans and is somehow not healing. Selene drinks a sample of Eve's blood to understand her story so far. She finds that during her escape from the facility, the girl found Selene's cryogenic tank and deactivated it. That is why Selene could escape. Eve confirms that she is Selene's daughter. Eve is rapidly growing weaker, so David takes them to Thomas, a vampire doctor. David's father, Thomas, does not welcome Selene and Eve, stunning Selene with the news that Michael died 12 years ago, and that Selene was the cause for the destruction of the vampire race. Upon being given some vampire blood, Eve heals extremely quickly. Dr. Jacob Lane, director of Antigen, is revealed to be a Lycan alongside his son, Quint. The antidote the corporation has been working on for many years is actually to make Lycans immune to the deadly effects of silver and to enhance their physical abilities. Eve's hybrid genetic code is required to achieve this, so Lane sends Quint with other Lycans to the vampire coven to recapture her. Because the girl is noticeably different from vampires, Lycans, and even hybrid, Selene prepares to leave. Selene also revealed to Eve that she is her daughter and her father Michael is killed by the humans. Meanwhile, expecting a human attack at any moment, David rallies the vampires and arms them. Unexpectedly, Lycans arrive instead, and numerous vampires are slaughtered. Selene encounters a gigantic super Lycan, who is later revealed to be Quint, his body changed by injections using Eve's blood. Selene is knocked unconscious under a pile of rubble. She later awakens and finds that Eve has been turned over to the Lycans by Thomas in exchange for their departure. David is mortally wounded during the battle. Selene decides to save Eve but first revives David using her immortal blood, given to her by Alexander Corvinus. Then Selene figures that Antigen is the Lycan hideout. Able to survive in sunlight, Selene enlists the help of Detective Sebastian. Sebastian agrees to help save Eve, admitting he was married to a nurse who was bitten at work and became a vampire, until she was killed by authorities during the Purge. They forced her to out into the day, into direct daylight, and she was burned to death. Sebastian confirms that the Lycans have been traced to Antigen, the corporation dedicated to killing off vampires. They also run the facility from which Selene has escaped. Antigen is actually run by Lycans, who have been posing as humans in order to trick the world's governments into believing the Lycans are extinct. Dr. Jacob Lane is trying to perfect the Lycan race and needs the DNA of Selene's daughter to do so. Selene and Sebastian assault Antigen to stop Lane and save Selene's daughter. Selene destroys part of Antigen's headquarters using explosives and silver gas, forcing Dr. Lane to move Eve out of the building to perform an operation to create more of the antidote. Selene escapes from the Lycans in the building. In the process, she finds Michael cryogenically frozen in a laboratory. She shoots his cell to let him out. Escaping in a van, Dr. Lane is intercepted by Sebastian and then by Selene, who causes the van to crash. Quint arrives, transforms into his super Lycan form. Quint fights Selene while they are fighting. Eve awakens on her stretcher, frees herself from the van, and engages Dr. Lane in a fight, who has injected himself with the super Lycan formula used on Quint. Sebastian and the revived David aid Eve in her fight until she kills Dr. Lane by ripping his throat out. Meanwhile, Quint corners Selene in a small cement guardroom but is forced to revert to his human form to get to her, only for Selene to shove an activated silver-based grenade into Quint's body. He heals instantly, trapping the grenade inside. Panicking, he half-changes back to Lycan form, but it is too late, and he explodes. Selene goes to find Michael but finds an empty cryogenic cell with Eve sharing his vision and learns he is on the roof. Selene, Eve, and David run to the roof only to find Michael is gone. After that, Selene was forced to keep Eve in hiding to keep her safe as she went to look for Michael, as she's being pursued by a group of Lycans. She battles the men as they morph into their wolf forms, just as David arrives to help her. The Lycans have a new leader named Marius. He shoots one of the Lycans in the foot as an incentive to send a message to Marius, but David also ends up getting shot. David's father Thomas arrives at the home of the Eastern Vampire Coven, where he is greeted by Varga. Varga brings Thomas to Samira, a high-ranking vampire in the Coven. They discuss the growth of Marius's Lycan army and the destruction of the Western Coven, with the main concern being to prevent a potential full-scale Lycan attack. Samira also hoped to succeed Victor as an elder after Selene killed him, and she, along with a vampire leader named Cassius, wants to prosecute her for it. Marius meets with his group in their hideout. He lays out a plan of attack so that the Lycans can destroy the vampire's sanctuary, but Marius also wants Eve's blood to gain great power. Thomas speaks before Cassius and the other vampire council members to convince them to allow Selene to train new death dealer recruits. After Selene helps take the bullet out of David, they are found by two vampires who escort them back to the sanctuary, where Selene is introduced to the recruits and is told she will teach them how to fight against Lycans. Meanwhile, it is revealed here that Samira and Varga are secret lovers, with Samira conspiring to get rid of Selene and the other leaders to step up as a vampire elder. Selene begins her training with the recruits. She teaches them that Lycans are vulnerable in their wolf forms because they are unable to use weapons. Varga demonstrates combat with Selene, but he overpowers and incapacitates her. He then shoots all of the recruits and burns them. Varga and Samira frame Selene for killing them. She and David run, and Thomas helps them get out. Samira catches them and kills Thomas in front of David before he and Selene escape. Samira sends a vampire named Alexia out to find Selene and David. Alexia meets with Marius, as they are engaged in a forbidden affair. She tells Marius about Selene's escape and how the other vampires are closing in on him and his clan. Selene and David head to the sanctuary of the Nordic Vampire Coven. They meet Lena and her father Vidar, and Vidar reveals to David that his mother was Amelia, one of the original vampire elders alongside Victor. David doesn't believe it as he always thought his mother abandoned him. Vidar gives David a sword made of pure silver that was Thomas's greatest weapon. Selene feels shame for herself since she was unable to take care of Eve and considers herself a failure as a mother and warrior. As David talks to her, she gives him a vial containing Amelia's blood. The Lycans eventually find the sanctuary and begin to attack. The vampires fight back as Selene and David try to help. David manages to slice one Lycan in half with his father's sword. Marius finds Selene and fights her on the ice. He demands to know where Eve is. Alexia impales Selene with a sword. She licks the blood off of it and sees Selene's memories, confirming to Marius that she really doesn't know where Eve is. Selene sinks into the icy waters. Lena later recovers Selene and begins to revive her. Back in the Eastern Coven, Samira drinks a large glass of Selene's blood to absorb the same kind of power she has. Alexia returns to give Samira more information, but Samira quickly learns of Alexia's affair with Marius, and she slits her throat as a result. David goes to confront Samira and the council. He tells them that he is Amelia's son. Knowing his claim would be challenged, he gives Cassius the vial with his mother's blood. Cassius drinks it and sees Amelia's memories, confirming the truth that David is the last pureblood. Samira orders Varga to kill David, but he has shifted his allegiance to the rightful leader. Marius and his army soon storm the house, leading to a climactic bloody battle between the vampires and Lycans. The Lycans break open the windows, leaving the vampires exposed to light and burning them. Lena and her own army arrives and join the fight. Selene returns, now more powerful. She fights against Marius once more while David takes on Samira. After a bladed duel, Samira is exposed to the sunlight, to David's sword as he runs it through her head and kills her. Meanwhile, Marius morphs into a gigantic wolf creature. He is wounded and some of his blood hits Selene's mouth. She sees into his memories and learns that Marius found Michael and murdered him. Selene manages to rip Marius's spine out, ending him for good. Selene and David interrupt the continuing battle to show Marius's severed head to the Lycans, forcing them to retreat. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing videos.